Thank you for your faithfulness to us. Thank you for your kindness to us when we didn't feel like we deserved it. And we didn't. But you gave everything for us, Lord. Your goodness came and found us when we were at our lowest. You've chased us from the very beginning because you wanted to win us back to your heart. So, Lord, thank you for the reminder that you continue to pursue us again and again. And Lord, I ask that if there's anyone in this house right now who's been running away from your love, that's been running away from your presence, that's been avoiding eye contact with you, God, I ask that you would turn our faces back towards you, that today would be an opportunity to once again experience and know the love of Christ. Jesus, thank you for your heart for us. Thank you for your kindness to us. And thank you that you love us unconditionally. We love you, Jesus. And I pray all these things in your precious name. Amen. You can go ahead and be seated. Good morning once again. Welcome. If you came in after I welcomed everybody, hello. It's nice to see you all. I just have a couple of announcements, and then we have a very special guest that I get to invite up. Here are the announcements. Before I invite my wife, I'm going to ask the ushers to come forward. This was not planned for Micah. Micah didn't know we were going to do this, but we'd like to take an offering for them right now. Micah, if anybody wanted to write a check, who would they write it to? Just you directly or the ministry? Start passing the bags, and I'm going to get my wife set up.
Well, hi, everyone. While Drew's getting me set up, I just want to, again, thank the women that did so much this weekend to make the IF gathering happen. It was so amazing to be able to have uninterrupted conversation that was dedicated to our growth and healing and processing some of the things that we need to process with Jesus. And an extra shout out, because your girl loved the soup bar. For everyone who brought soup, it was so good. The salads, the desserts, everything was so top-notch and so first class. And I just want to thank you guys for helping. And for those who came, thank you for coming. I'm so glad we got to do that together. And I really believe this is just the beginning of more community like that. Gideon, I feel really loud in my monitors. If I could have that turned down. I'm going to pray for us, you guys. But before I do, I'm just super excited because, as you know, we're on a whole theme of worship. And I was super excited that we were doing this series because I'm like, yes, I was made to worship, and I know it, and I love to worship, and I love to bring you guys I get to worship with you. It's going to be so fun because I get to talk about how wonderful it is to worship such a good God, and in his presence is fullness of joy, and it's going to be so fun. And then God was like, yes, but I'm going to have you talk about something else. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay, I get to talk about something that is not as fun, but it's so crucial for us to address this before we can enter into fullness of joy. So with that being said, I'm going to pray. And Jesus, I am so honored to be a representative of your heart today. We've had the most wild ride, and I wouldn't trade it. I've gotten to know parts of your heart that I would have never experienced. Jesus, today we want to experience you in a part of your heart in a new way. We're ready. We're ready to be unstuck. We're ready to move forward in what you have for us. So Jesus, prepare our hearts. Let us really feel your presence. We're talking about something heavy and weighty, but your presence is so much more weighty and wonderful. And it's so worth it. It's so worth it. It's so worth it to fight through to find you, because I know you're fighting for us. Help us to encounter your goodness today. Could I get Psalm 23 up on the screen? Would you guys do me a favor and stand? We're going to read this psalm together. Most of you know it, but we're going to read it together. If you want to close your eyes and say it to prove that you were raised in a Christian home, feel free. You guys get points. All right, we're going to start Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Thank you. You can have a seat. Probably one of the most well-known passages of the Bible. I'm going to come back to that. Do you guys ever get a word at the beginning of the year, like God's going to give you this word for the year, and that's going to be the word you kind of ride through the year? And you're like, God, you promised this promise, and everything that happens this year, I'm going to hold you to this promise. Well, last year, the word that the Lord gave me going into the year was that this is going to be a year of me falling more in love with Jesus. Well, hello. Yes, please. I'll take it. I love that butterflies and rainbows and sunshine ride. I will have it. All right, let's go. So what you may not know about me, a lot of you guys here know me, my friends. I love you. Thank you for being here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Drew's wife. But before I was Drew's wife, I was born into a family of 7 kids, 6 girls, and my parents are pastors, and we're a big family. We're a loud family. We take over every place we walk into because we just have a lot of life, and we just enjoy each other. And so we're very close to each other. Some of us live real close together and do life together, and some are spread out, but emotionally, relationally, we're very close. And so we do have things that go on that we're all not a part of everybody's everyday life, but for the most part, we keep tabs on everybody. Mid-January, beginning of February, a couple of my sisters and their husbands went away on a Bahama vacation, and we sat back and watched their pictures, and we're like, oh, that looks so great. I'm so glad you guys got to do that. Next time, we're all going to go. They came back from that, and I have a sister and her husband. They are living in Georgia at the time, and they were the ones that had gone on that vacation. We were like, I'm so glad for you guys. Then they came back, and they had a sweet birthday party for my niece. Her birthday's on Valentine's Day, and her name is Audrey Valentine, because it's, she was born on that day. It was her 23rd birthday, which is interesting, because we're reading Psalm 23. And they had a sweet time. One of the things we do at family gatherings for birthdays is we go around and we tell each other what we love about the birthday person. And we share love that way. So every year you're guaranteed your family has to say something nice about you. We really enjoy those times, and a lot of times our kids will voice record them, so we have them for the future. It's just so fun to have. And then my oldest niece, that same family, she had surprised her dad with a trip of a lifetime to something he'd always wanted to do, which was go to Portugal and see the biggest waves in the world. Do you guys know that Portugal has some of the biggest waves in the world, or record? Yeah, huge. And he was just a huge, huge fan of that. So they were sending us pictures, and we were like, that's amazing, that's so great, how cool that you guys get to do this. And we just thought it was so amazing that they got to do that. You know how you just see what's happening in other people's lives, and you're like, oh, it's so cool. Like, I know there's a bad rap for social media, but on the other hand, we get to see what our friends and family are doing, and it's kind of fun to watch that. And so they had just gotten back from that trip, and a couple of sisters and me, we went over to my other sister's house. It was her birthday. And we were talking about their trip and how they had just been in the Bahamas, and that was so cool. And we got a call, and our whole world shattered because we found out that our brother-in-law, who had just gotten back from Portugal, collapsed, and he met Jesus that day. You guys, that was a year ago. Next week is 1 year that happened. When that happened, let me just tell you that I've experienced loss. I've experienced feeling like the rug's been pulled out from under me. I've experienced betrayal. I've experienced abuse, for those of you who know my story. I've experienced having to start over and having this pain that I have to take to Jesus. But to be fair, I feel like a lot of that pain happened before I knew Jesus. And so now, as I'm entering into this place of knowing Jesus and having a relationship with him, I can go back and say, well, Jesus, like, where were you when that happened? And he's like, oh, I was right there, and I comforted you, and I was with you through that. And it's like, okay, now I can move forward. But all of a sudden, this happened, and I was like, what? What just happened? I thought we were good. Like, I thought you were going to give me a heads up about stuff. I thought this was the year I was going to fall in love with you. And I honestly don't know if I even want to look at you. How could a good God do something like this? Now, you may not have experienced the death of a loved one, but I know that every one of you on some level can relate to the feelings that I had toward God about a devastating loss, or I thought it was going to look a certain way, and it didn't. I feel betrayed by you, let down by you, and yet we come on Sunday morning, you're never going to let me down. And I'm singing those songs, and I'm going, yeah, but that time you did, and that time you did. I thought you were going to do that, and you didn't. So how do I get to the point where I'm worshiping in that place of, I don't trust you. How could I worship someone I don't trust? So I went into this, immediately, I went into this, survival mode. Our entire family flew from everywhere they were and gathered in Georgia. There's like 50 of us. We descended upon this little home that they were staying in. And that whole week was just filled with like, is this happening? How can this be? He was just right here. He was just on this trip. He was just in this hallway. All of his stuff is there. Like, he didn't pack up and leave. Surely he's coming through the door, and yet all of us are there because he's not. And I say we have a big, wonderful, beautiful family, and we're connected, and we are. But we don't all agree on everything exactly the same, right? So we have different points of view coming into this. But that week, the love that came in like a wave and carried us through all of the stuff that happened this week, I'm sitting in this little living room, and we're weeping and crying, we're sharing stories and laughing, we're breaking out into song and just singing. The entire family, we all sing. We all sing in 50-part harmony. And we're all just singing out to Jesus. And the whole time I'm just wrestling with, I love that song, but I hate you right now. I felt like I just put on blinders because it's too painful to look at someone who would do something so hurtful. The one thing I kept wrestling with that week is the undeniable love in that room. And I said, God, I don't think I can trust you. I don't think I like you. But I can't deny the love in this room is you. I don't know how to receive words from you. I don't know how to receive love from you. I don't know how to find you in this mess. But I do know that the love that's in this room could never come from anywhere else but you. And that's how I have to experience you right now, that your love. We went home after that horrible week, which is the weirdest, most beautiful time we had together. That sucks, doesn't it? It's the worst time. And then it's also like this beauty that came of it that would never have happened if we hadn't been there for the worst time of our lives. So we get home, and at that point we decided my sister was going to come, and we opened our home for her family to come, kind of just be in a little oasis for a second until they figured out where they were going next. And so we're cleaning our house, and I'm getting the house ready. And this house, you guys, for those of you who don't know, a couple years ago, we were waiting on the Lord. We knew he had a house for us. He kept giving us words that he had a house for us from all different people. And so we're like living in my parents' basement, which they are wonderful, but we are grown adults. And so it was like ready to be launched into our own. And the Lord overnight, literally, he gave us so many words. One of the things he said is, I'm an overnight God. And I'm like, well, any time between June and January would be good to go overnight. So it really was an overnight thing. We found this house, and it was a miracle house. It was like literally just such a dream. God had given me pictures of it, and it lined up with that. It was a parsonage of a church who didn't have a pastor, and they weren't going to be getting a pastor, so we were set. Location was amazing, all these things. So we'd been in that house for a couple years, and I'm cleaning it thinking, as awful as this is, Lord, thank you that I have this house to even offer to them, because you must have known, like, we needed this space to be able to offer. Like, this is great. Thank you. And I'm cleaning and getting ready, and Drew walked through the door, and he said, hey, I need to talk to you. The elder of the church let me know that they just got a pastor, so we need to be out of the house in 90 days. And I think it's like adding insult to injury. I think that's the best way to describe it, or like a sucker punch, because in that moment, all I heard was, going through the valley of the shadow of death. That's it. That's where I'm at. You give and take away. I don't know how to process the relationship that I've had with you for 15 years and what's happening around me, because it's like the rug is being pulled out from under me. I'm being tossed. It's not just a storm. It feels like every other storm in my life seemed calm compared to this. And I really had to wrestle with this choice. And here's the problem for me. I've done life without Jesus. It's a no-go for me. I can't do life without Jesus. I know what that looks like. That's hopeless, despair, suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, racking my body with terrible things. I can't do that. But if this is what following Jesus is, and he can just take things away whenever he wants, well, I don't want that either. So what's the choice? So I'm going to tell you that part of me here is like, I'm going to follow Jesus, because I'm going to sit at this piano, I'm going to sing all the heaven songs, I'm going to have visions of my brother-in-law in heaven dancing with Jesus, and that's going to keep me going, that's going to keep me alive. And this other part of me was like, I am going to curl into the fetal position and stay here until Jesus takes me. And the problem is I'm a wife and a mom, so I had to get out of bed. And I think there's this tension that we live in. We come to church, no one talks about this part of things. We come to church, we have joy. We sing worship songs to Jesus. Oh yeah, all my life you have been faithful. So good. So good. And then we go home and we self-medicate. We self-isolate, we self-protect. We don't encounter Jesus the rest of the week because I like this little club. This is fun, right? Have some friends here, good music, great coffee and donuts. This is a fun little thing that makes me feel like I did something good, you know? Oh yeah, I go to church. Oh yeah, I go to church every Sunday. Wouldn't miss it. But at home, I'm wrestling with the Lord. I hate everybody. In a way, I think it's a form of self-protection. If I can hate everyone, then I don't have to hurt when I lose someone else. Felt like a little bit of a zombie walking through that year, this last year. My nephew, his son actually, was married this year. And we had to gather for that, and his dad's not there, you know, and just the constant reminders, you know, of when they're not there. And again, I just want to say, I know that I'm speaking about a personal experience of losing someone, and you may have that, and you may not. But I guarantee you, there are moments in your life that you have felt disappointed by God, let down by God. You thought we were going this way, and he goes, whoop, and your head is kind of left spinning, and you're left with the choice, am I going to continue to trust him, or am I going to fall away and say, I don't trust you anymore, right? It feels like there's two choices. There's a third choice. Did you know in the Bible, there's an entire book called Lamentations? There's a theme in the Bible of lamenting. You know, lamenting is not complaining to God and sitting in anger. Lamenting leads to worship. Because lamenting is a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. And if I say to Jesus, I'm just going to ignore that thing happened because I don't have answers from you, and it's too painful to not have answers from you. So I'm going to just pretend it didn't happen. I'm going to stuff it away. I'm going to tuck it down here, and I'm just still going to worship you. Pretend that didn't happen. I'm going to present to you the part of me that I want you to see. I'm going to keep this part hidden because I don't have an answer for that. And it seems a little scary, dark, and messy. And I would like to have everything wrapped up in a bow, please, in this little box. Jesus does this for me, I do this for him. We have a nice little back and forth. Lament is an expression of regret or disappointment over something considered unsatisfactory, unreasonable, or unfair. I kept saying to God, this makes no sense. This is senseless. This is stupid. It's unfair. It's not satisfactory. It's unreasonable. And can I just be vulnerable and say, you may understand if you've lost someone that you love like this. God, there are so many stupid idiots, making sure there's no kids. There are so many terrible people out there that are actively working against you. And this man loves you, and he loves his wife more than we've ever experienced this love of husband and wife and the kids, and they have this great family dynamic, and they love each other, and they love you. Why him? And I'm just going to say the difference between lamenting and complaining. And it's all through the Psalms. You can see it. And David did this in most of his Psalms. He starts by voicing his disagreement with the Lord. Or, God, I'm being chased by my enemies. He starts by acknowledging where he's at with his feelings, okay? Hold on. Everyone calm down. I said the word feelings. I know this is church. Everyone calm down. Take a deep breath. He acknowledged his feelings. And what I just shared with you, do you think last July when I'm sitting there screaming my heart out to God, I'm thinking, I'm going to share this next year? No. Because Jesus doesn't leave us in this despair and hopelessness. I know that Jesus can resurrect, but he didn't. He didn't. I would love to be able to say 3 days later, 24 hours later, because we know God can do that. Okay, God, I'm telling you this. You're the God that resurrects. You're the God of miracles. You're all these things. How do I reconcile the truth of who he says he is with the reality of my circumstances? They don't line up. This is what the Lord told me. To the extent that I lament is the extent I get to experience the heart of God. What was happening is that I was angry and holding on to all this anger between me and God. And as I'm wrapped up in that, I did not have capacity to experience the heart of God. I did not have capacity to experience joy right in front of me, beauty right in front of me, relationships and love all around me, because I was holding on to this anger. I had this time with the Lord. I was sitting at the piano, and that's where a lot of my emotions come out. And I was saying to him, I'm kind of seeing this vision of me sitting on the shore, and you know how people chain themselves to a tree? They don't want to let this tree get cut down. I saw myself chained to my pain. And I said to him, I don't want to leave this pain because it needs to be validated. There needs to be justice for this pain. You need to give me an answer. Why? And if I don't sit here and hold on to this pain, maybe no one will notice. I'm walking around with half a heart. I said, I see you on the other side of the shore, and I see your hands, come over here. And I'm like, I can't just walk over to you. You gotta come to me. You're the one that walks on water. I said to him, I need a supernatural act of God. I just kept saying it over and over. I need a supernatural act of God to get me out of here. I've tried. I've gone and sat at the river for hours just saying, tell me something. And all I kept hearing was, I'm right here with you. What I wanted to hear was, your brother-in-law's alive. Everything's back to normal. But he just kept saying, I'm here with you. So I was telling God this is actually in early January. I was telling the Lord, I need a supernatural act of God because I cannot go into this next year not knowing who or what you're going to take away from me. I don't even want to go into it. I had this dream that night. I left it. I need a supernatural act of God. See it when it happens. I mean, listen. I'm just going to testify that Jesus can take your sarcasm, he can take your anger, he can take all the things you want to say to him that you would never even want to say to anyone else or admit that you feel. And I am here to testify because he does not strike me dead, and I have said some things. So I had a dream that night, actually. Jesus speaks to me a lot in dreams, but this one is really impactful. I had a dream, and I had a friend come up to me in the dream and say, you're living under a curse of death. And in the dream, my spirit was just like, oh my goodness, I don't want that. So I was doing all kinds of warfare in my dream, breaking things off, slicing things and dicing them. But I woke up the next morning and I felt like I took a breath. And here's the problem, and this is, maybe you can understand this too if you've been through it. It didn't happen to me, do you know? I have my husband, I have my kids. It didn't happen to me, but it did, right? It's like secondary trauma. And the hard part about that is that I can't carry my sister's trauma. I can empathize and sympathize and pray and support, but me carrying it doesn't mean she doesn't have to. It's a real bummer. Because my heart is, I'll take yours, I'll take yours, I'll take yours. Everyone walk free. I'll sit here and hold on to it for you. I mean, that's not healthy. It's a probably trauma background, you know. But I kept hearing all year, you give and take away. You're in the valley of the shadow of death. In this world you will have tribulation. And I was like, God, I am so sick of you keeping those nasty promises. What about the good ones? What about the plans you have for me and plans to prosper me? Can we get a couple of those on the docket? And he said, you're only quoting half of those verses. In this world, you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Oh, okay. He gives and takes away. Who said that? Do you know? Job. Do you know what happened to Job? I'm not going to take time to read it. You know what happened to Job, and this is Job's response. Job, actually, I think I have this section, Job 1. It says, then Job arose after finding out all of his kids were killed, all of his animals were killed, everything, he lost everything. He rose, tore his robe and shaved his head and fell on the ground and what? What? Wait, how? No. He fell on the ground, beat his chest, and said, I hate you, God. This is bizarre. He said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. Oh, you can get to that place? You can get to the place where God takes everything, and you still don't charge God with wrong? There's another verse in Job. He said, though he slay me, I will hope in him. Yet I will argue my ways to his face. I'm just saying, the verse doesn't end there like, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. It does say that, which is amazing, right? I want to be able to just immediately say that. Yep, God, you can take away everything. I will trust in you, and you're good, and you have plans for me, and I'm just going to go with that. It says, I will argue my ways to his face. If the example of Job not having anger toward God and not charging God with this wrongdoing, also we have the example of him arguing his ways. Maybe we're allowed to do that. Maybe this whole story is no matter what is taken away from you, you can trust God, but in the process, it's not the worst thing to argue your ways to his face. That means you have to voice them to God. You have to acknowledge that it's there. The difference between lamenting and complaining is that complaining leads you to this road of anger and ultimately death. And if not physically, emotionally and spiritually. Emotionally, I was operating under a spirit of death. And what does that look like? Hopelessness, despair. There's no way out. I'm stuck in this valley. There's nothing to live for. I can't experience love around me. I can't experience joy around me. I have no way of moving forward. I'm stuck, and I guess this is just who I am from now on. Might as well not be living. But lamenting, Jesus actually looks at it as a form of worship. Can you imagine if you bring your messy, deep, dark feelings to Jesus, and instead of him saying, well, I never, he says, come to me, all ye that are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. What if he says, even though you're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, you don't have to fear. I'm with you. My rod and my staff, they comfort you. They don't hit you over the head. They make sure, don't fall off the edge, or if you do, I will pick you back up and put you here. They let me know he's there. He's guiding me. I may not see it. I may not feel it, but they let me know he's there. It doesn't end there. Psalm 23 says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. And I just want to say, Can we note, Jesus doesn't rescue us out of the valley, and he doesn't remove us from the presence of our enemies. Why? He can do anything. Jesus, I chose you. I should be living the good life. I have these people saying things about me. I have work issues. I have relational issues. Everything should be smooth sailing. I asked the Lord this, so I have an answer that he told me. He said, I know you like the mountaintops, but I value the valley. The valley is where we build trust. To climb a mountain with someone, you got to know how to trust them. You have to know how to trust them. He said, I value this time with me, even if you're yelling at me, because you're talking to me. Valleys are where vegetation are, orchards and fields of flowers and all of these things that actually aren't sustainable on a mountaintop. Those are fun. But the value is in the valley. He said, to the extent that I lament, to the extent that I am willing to show him a part of my heart that feels a little scary, and open up that part of my heart and give it to him, now releases that part of my heart to receive something back from him. Now I get to experience a part of God's heart I never knew existed. This last year, when I walked through the valley of the shadow of death and I had this anger toward God, I can absolutely tell you that there wasn't a day that went by that Jesus didn't show me he was with me. There were times when I was in bed and I'm not getting out. And he's like, that's okay, I'll have a friend text you, tell you she's praying for you. That's okay, I'll have a sister ask you if you want to go for coffee. Lord knows I can't say no to that one. There's a verse that we love to quote. Your mercies are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. You know where that is? Lamentations. Isn't that wild? That's in the middle of Lamentations. So when we are lamenting, it is that we are fighting our way to God's heart. When we are addressing the pain, okay, he knows it's there. You're not hiding it from him. He knows it's there. And you know what? He cannot heal what's not real, right? So if you want to present a part of you to Jesus, like, I'm over here wanting to bless this part of me. I'm at church every Sunday. I give. I work in the nursery. Bless this. He's like, I can't bless who you pretend to be. I can bless who you are, though. Jesus would rather have you in the fetal position in the valley, yelling at him, than at church on Sunday, putting on a little mask, getting a little pat on the shoulder. All of that you could do in Walmart. You could go to Costco and get a greeter. What's the difference? Church is the place where we get to worship God corporately together. But worship doesn't just happen at a 10:30 on Sunday morning. The reason that I can worship on Sunday morning is because those songs are true. All my life. He's been faithful. I'm going to wrap up with this. You guys, there's so many scriptures that talk about lamenting. Hannah was so on the ground. They thought she was drunk. She was crying so much. What was she doing? She was lamenting. And what did God do? He answered her prayer and gave her a son. Jesus lamented in the Garden of Gethsemane. Sweat drops of blood. That's how much. And he was saying, Father, if it's your will, let this cup pass. And yet, for the joy that was set before him. You guys know that when the Bible talks about joy, it means a little extra to me. What I feel like every time the Lord talks to me about joy, it's like it's not just your name, it's your identity. So for who you are, that was set before him, he counted that joy. For the joy that was set before him, he endured all that. Why would Jesus have to carry our griefs and bear our sorrows if we didn't have any? Why would he have to be known as the man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, if we didn't have that? Why would he need to be relatable to us like that? Why would he say, cast your cares upon me, if we don't have them? We are like him. When Jesus found out that Lazarus had died and Martha and Mary were saying, where were you? If you were here, our brother would not have died. Did Jesus say, it's fine, I can resurrect him. Let's do this. Let's put a little package on, a Band-Aid and package his stuff, and boom, here he is. Well, he was going to do that, but he didn't. He wept. He wept first. He didn't just fix their problem. He weeps with you. He weeps with you. Why does the Bible say he catches every tear in a bottle? Because we have them. We're like him. And I just want to say that when I grieve over something that also grieves God's heart, then I'm aligning my heart with his. I'm not separate from him if I grieve. It grieves the heart of God. Did you know we can grieve the heart of God? God grieves. I said to God, what about this year? At the beginning of the year, you said, I'm going to fall in love with you all over again. Well, that was a heck of a way to do it. And he said, I know you thought I meant rainbows, butterflies, and sunshine, but I meant real love. I meant real love. Look at 1 Corinthians 13. What does it say? What does it say? 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient and kind. Was I patient and kind this year? Yeah. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. Now, let me just say, I felt like it was a little rude to take my brother-in-law, okay? It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. Now, a lot of times like Miranda, I think when she spoke, she quoted this scripture too. We see this a lot at weddings. But it's not just between me and my husband. This is how God loves. And this is what God meant when he said, you're going to experience this from me this year. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. Have you guys ever been in love with someone when you were 16, 17, 18, and now you can't remember their name? That's not the kind of love God was trying to teach me or show me last year. He wanted me to know the kind of love where he's in the valley with me. He's catching my tears. He's comforting me. This is the deep, deep love of God. And at the risk of sounding tongue-in-cheek, you don't get that just on a Sunday morning. That's every day. That's between you and him. That's not a message. That's not a worship song. That's deep, deep in here. And no one else can do that for you. But because he does not insist on his own way, he cannot force you to do that either. It is your choice. It's your choice to lament. To the extent that you lament is the extent you experience joy. To the extent that you lament is the extent that you experience hope. To the extent that you lament is the extent that you will get to experience the true heart of God for you. if there's an area of your life that you are experiencing death in, emotionally, spiritually, financially, relationally, that's a part of your life that you've not invited Jesus into. Because Jesus is life. Jesus brings hope. Jesus revives. Jesus restores. In Isaiah, it says that he turns our mourning into dancing. He gives us a garment of praise for heaviness. I'm going to call the worship team back up because I'm ready to wrap up, but I want to say, he cannot exchange things with us unless we are willing to hand it over. He will not give you joy while you have heaviness and you're not willing to let go of it. When I'm chained to my pain over here, he was trying to give me joy, love, peace. I have all this right here, but I couldn't get to it because I was so holding on to this. But I got to a point where I was like, I can't live like this. So you have to do something. Sometimes we need to get to a place of real brokenness. You might think, I've told him, I'm ready. I don't know why he's not doing anything. I said, yeah, you have my heart, I surrender all. But if you really, deep down in your heart, have not given something over to him, and you still have an addiction, that's on you. Jesus is tenderly calling you. Jesus is drawing you with his tender, loving kindness. If you have pain, trauma that keeps you stuck, Jesus is pursuing you with goodness and mercy. He is inviting you to the table that he's prepared just for you and him to sit and talk. Lay it all out, put it out on the table. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You anoint my head with oil. Why is that important? In Isaiah, it says he gives us oil of gladness for our heaviness. Jesus wants to anoint you today with oil. Isaiah 61 says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because the Lord has anointed me to bring the good news to the poor. This is talking about Jesus. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted. Every one of us has a little piece of our heart that's broken. He can bind it up. To proclaim liberty to the captives. Every one of us has a little thing in our life that we have locked away. Self-protection, a hidden secret, something tucked away. He can set you free. And the opening of the prison to those who are bound. To proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God. To comfort all who mourn. To give them a beautiful headdress instead of ashes. The oil of gladness instead of mourning. The garment of praise instead of a faint spirit. That they may be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. God could have rescued Daniel from the lion's den. He could have rescued the 3 Hebrew boys from the fire. He wanted to show himself in it with them. Often we ask the Lord to deliver us, and he's trying to develop us. We want to see the hand of God move, but we don't seek the face of God. I'm inviting you to seek the face of God today. Can you stand with me? Are you lamenting or are you just angry? Are you lamenting or are you just complaining? Are you lamenting or are you taking that pain as your identity now? You're a victim. You were abused. You're an addict. That's not life. That's speaking death over yourself. Are you operating under a curse? Let's break that. Let's break that off in Jesus' name. One more verse. The Bible says, one of my favorite verses, it says, heart-shattered lives, ready for love. Don't for a moment escape God's notice. God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't abandoned you. He hasn't tossed you aside or discarded you. Those are lies from the enemy. And because the enemy likes to give us evidence to back up their lies, maybe we're only seeing half the truth. So Jesus, remove the veil from our eyes. Let us see the truth. Let us see the rest of the sentence. The way to God's heart, the way to true worship is this little word, yet. Though he slay me, yet I will trust him. If it feels scary to trust God, there may be a part of your heart that feels like he's not good, that he hasn't been faithful, that he hasn't been chasing you with his love and mercy and goodness. Might be hard to sing that song. Might be hard to sing God is so good, because there are lots of areas in your life he hasn't been good. Can I challenge you from personal experience? I know it's true that he brings hope to the hopeless. He brings life into those areas. Take them to Jesus. We love to pray for you. That's amazing. But there's a different level of vulnerability that you have when you go to God and you just remember that he already knows. He already knows, you guys. The little secret that you would never tell anyone up here to pray about, Jesus knows. He's not even asking you to tell everybody, just him. When we lament, we acknowledge our pain, and it is unto something. What is it unto? Unto relationship with Jesus. I'm not complaining my way into the depths of hell. I'm pleading my case to Jesus, and I'm saying, even if I never know the answer, even if you don't answer the why, yet I will trust you. You know what happens next, and I don't. I have to trust that you've got everybody in this situation, because I cannot carry it. But I have to find Jesus in my situation for me. I can't help someone who's drowning while I'm drowning. I have to seek Jesus and find him for me. So when I run to that well and I say, oh, what? This never-ending well? It's just this gushing spring? Okay. And then I come and tell everybody, I'm like, here, I'm going to share it with you. There's a well over there. It's Jesus. If you feel forsaken, abandoned, ignored, those are not his characteristics. Ask him to show you who he is. Tell him you're willing to see it. Let him prove himself. He's so good at that. I don't need to prove him. He can prove himself. While we go into this worship song, I want to invite you to find the area of your life. Ask God, what's the area of my life that is operating in death? What's an area that I am chained to, that I don't see you in, that feels hopeless? Breathe on it. Tell him, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. And yet, with my free will, I choose to trust you. that leads to knowing these parts of God's heart that just expands your view. You get to know more things, great and mighty things. Great and mighty things. He has so much more to show you. So much more. I don't care if you've been in church and known God your whole life, there's more. Jesus, open our eyes to see you. We want to know you and feel you. And Jesus, we come before you vulnerable, with open hearts and open hands, because we want to be led into your presence. I want to be in a place where I can truly say, this hurts, but I'm not angry at God because I trust him. This is painful, but man, is the love of Jesus so tangible right now. I don't know the answers to this, but I refuse to live under the curse of death. I have two choices. I'm going toward Jesus, I'm going toward the enemy. And Lord knows, we've been set free. We're not going that way. We're moving forward. This is your invitation to take a step forward. One step. Jesus, give us the bravery to take one step forward. I'm going to ask the guys if they'll come up just here and pray. If you need prayer while we're singing this song, will you come forward and have one of the guys pray for you? I know this seems like a heavy topic, but Jesus brings hope. When we lament and exchange that, we get joy, life. There's hope on the other side of this. Jesus has life for you. Jesus, fill us fresh with your life.